My next topic, and I don't know why I haven't covered this before. It's such a passionate topic. But do you know what country has decriminalized every drug?
Venezuela?
See, I thought it was Venezuela too, but that was a different situation where they transitioned from like socialism to capitalism or vice versa, whatever. But it's Portugal. Portugal. So there were other countries before Portugal that had some sort of decriminalization or close to what they're working with. But they're the ones who get the check mark that yes, you did it and you were the first country to successfully do it, and the amount of success they had has literally been insane, and the amount of success that it's given to their society, to their systems, it's unmatchable. It is the most insane thing that I've seen and looked into in managing these situations, you know. Have you heard much about it?
Not Portugal specifically. I mean, I have looked into like the optics of decriminalizing all drugs and like the supposed benefits that people like theorized, and I saw them use some countries as like examples, but I mean, no.
Okay, so
Not to any, like significant extent.
the benefits are incredible. The one thing I chose to leave out is organized crime numbers, and that's because I was having a hard time finding the exact questions and answers that I wanted, that I was looking for. So I just chose, you know what, I'll just leave that out. There is enough incredible proof and evidence in this without even needing to go into that. And if you guys watching don't know, organized crime and drugs go hand in hand. So all the success that you see with the drug rates and what it's done for their society overall, you can already correlate that to organized crime. Organized crime and drugs go hand in hand. So,
Of course.
give you the brief rundown here. 2001, Portugal decriminalized everything. And what that means and what that looks like is that if you're carrying, let's say I am a heroin addict, okay, and I'm carrying a gram of heroin in my pocket, and I get pulled over, I was speeding, I was doing whatever, right? And I get searched for whatever reason, they find my gram of heroin, their police still take that gram of heroin, okay? And they write you a ticket. Then you take that ticket and you go to court, where it is a civil court. You meet with a doctor, a lawyer, and a psychiatrist or psychologist, and they determine whether you are a high-risk drug user or a low-risk drug user. If you are a high-risk drug user, you get prescriptions written to go see therapy and help you understand the pros and cons of drug use, what it can do to you, what it can do for you, and what they have found the causes are. And
Wow.
I know, it's insane. So
Sounds like a really good system.
yeah, and they've figured out that that most 90% plus of these drug users that go and seek therapy, they're teaching them that, look, most of the time people are at like repetitive addicts, like trash can type addicts, like gutter addicts,
Junkies.
junkies, because they've had a relationship issue, a parental issue, a trauma issue. There were like 4 of these different things that they tried teaching, helping their citizens to identify and figure out, okay? It's been super successful. And what's crazy is they came from the exact opposite of what they're working with now. They had a government that controlled everything. It kept the rest of the world out from everywhere. There was no major drugs getting in. There was no major technology getting in. It was essentially a fascist system that they had going on, all right? Well,
Okay.
that changed. What was it, in the 80s? Or actually, I think it was in the 70s, in the early 70s. That changed. And they dropped all of those beliefs and borders. Well, in came the drugs, and they had a raging drug problem because they had never experienced drugs. And now their entire government system was being flipped over on its head. People didn't know what to do. They were really unsure about life. They also had a bunch of trauma from being led by a fascist and having those ideas being forced down their throat. So heroin started taking a toll, okay? They had some of the highest drug use rates in the EU at the time. So, 2001, they decriminalized everything. This is just a brief breakdown in a 15 or 16 year period of the success they had, okay? So in 1999, and there were years where these numbers were higher, okay? Mm-hmm. In 1999, they had 369 overdose deaths, okay? In 2016, they had 30. So 15
Whoa.
years after the decriminalization.
Whoa.
Yeah. If that
Whoa.
doesn't tell you that's working, like...
That is nuts.
Yep. And they did have to fight for this because there's a progressive political movement there and there is a conservative. And when they first rolled this out, the conservatives started freaking out and wanted to take the approach of the U.S. and look at it as a war on drugs, and we're going to make things worse and harder. And thank God they didn't, dude, because
we have a great example now.
We are the opposite of this. So, like in if our war on drugs would have started in year 2001. In 99, we would have had 400 ODs, and then we would have started the war on drugs, and it would have gone up 50%. You know what I mean? That's what the war on drugs did. Because trying to stop vices and control vices never works. Ever. Period. For anything.
Okay, so
sex, drugs, alcohol, anything.
I agree with you entirely. But do you think the war on drugs was like a CIA operation where they flooded us with drugs and made money off of it?
I think there's this is a one of those big conspiracy theories that are out there. Do I believe that there are CIA agents that made money off of dope because there were so many junkies and because it was beneficial for them to exploit and work with one cartel to shut down the other 5 cartels? Yes, I do think that happened. Absolutely 100%. Do I think it's a conspiracy theory where the highest of the high at the CIA was flooding this down the system saying, hey guys, I need all agents making sure we're bringing tons of drugs in this? No, I don't think that's the case. I think when there's opportunity, people take advantage of that. So there were probably agents that, sure, probably did that. But do I think it's some big, we're going to create a war on drugs and then we're going to flood the streets with drugs? I doubt.
Drugs and sex trafficking are the biggest industries in the world, period.
Yeah. It's because those are the industries that the world is fighting against the hardest.
The most
Decriminalize
taboo.
all of it. Decriminalize all of it, and there might be a 10-year period where it establishes some sort of baseline, right? And then drops. So here, I'll go through these and then talk a little bit into that. So in 2000, right before they decriminalized everything, they had 907 new HIV diagnoses from injecting. Okay? 907. In 2017, they had 18. 18. That's insane.
Oh my gosh.
Insane.
Wait, you don't think that has anything to do? I mean, I feel like there's a variable that could affect that statistic, which is 20 years past the HIV pandemic or whatever epidemic, and then you have almost 17 more years past that. And HIV...
That was due to injecting, but it also is the same with all the hepatitis too. HIV is just the most serious. That's why it got put on this.
HIV, we just developed so many new things to help take care of
those
people.
It correlates the same with everything.
To make it literally able to not be passed on.
It correlates the same with everything. Okay. So that doesn't make sense because all the hepatitis stats look exactly the same.
So when you put it with all the other statistics, it follows the same trend, so it makes sense.
Like, there isn't a single statistic on here where they got worse. That's what I'm saying, is this system, this war on drugs, is so ridiculously flawed. It needs to be thrown out the window and never looked at again to try and control these vices. So in 1999, 2 years before they decriminalized it, they had 3,863 people incarcerated for drug offenses,
Oh
okay?
my gosh.
In 2017, they had 1,140, and those 1,140 were leftover charges from before. That was also where drugs were included on top of other charges, too.
Yeah.
So that number is just incredible. Incredible, the amount of difference
Dude,
there.
nobody should go to jail or prison for using drugs.
I agree. And look, here's a
It just
figure.
doesn't benefit anything.
Here-
It literally benefits nothing.
Here's
It
a
only
figure
hurts.
that I worked out. Okay, so for the U.S., on average, 1.16 million Americans are arrested annually for the sale, manufacture, possession of illegal substances. Okay, so that's 1.16 million. The average
That's horrible.
sentence is 20 months. So what I did is I just made this an annual stat. So I took off 8 months, right? So we have 1.16 million people per year on average who are doing time for drug charges. The average income overall is $60,575. So when you take 1.16 million times 60,575,000, that total income of those people that we are putting in jail is $70 billion. $70 billion. So if those 1.16 million people had the ability and chance to go out there and work a job at the average income in the U.S., they would have brought an additional $70 billion of income, taxable income, to the table. So with the average income tax, with all everything factored in and taken into account, with that $70 billion, the government would have got $10 billion in taxes. So by us not doing things like trying to solve the problem instead of slap people with charges, we could be getting $10 billion additional dollars in taxes annually. Annually, if we just did things different.
Is there any monetary gain for sending people to prison? Like, not for the prisons, but for the government? No, it's only a cost for them. There's
And-
no benefit financially.
So, and here's the thing on top of it too. So we're not only starving that income and tax from going to the government, but we're also spending between $15 and $25 billion a year to enforce the 1.16 million people.
So we should take all that money and put it into the school system.
No, I think we should do what Portugal has done.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to have all that additional $10 billion of
what
taxes.
I'm
And
saying.
then, yes, that could absolutely go into the school system. Now,
Creating equality, like real equality.
I agree. That would literally cover most of the needs in the U.S. Just one fell swoop. You know what I mean? So they look at it in a way now that they're trying to correct and fix the problem. They're not slapping people on the wrist, but they're trying to teach people why they're an addict and how to overcome that. So this is one stat that they did see, which I thought was interesting because you know what they teach people too when they're going through their training system is that, and this is for all drugs, there is healthy drug use and there's unhealthy drug use. So there's statistics of how many people have tried drugs or used drugs has gone through the roof. But their amount of addicts has decreased so insanely low. So people are getting out there and trying drugs,
Which is fine.
which is fine,
There's nothing
literally
wrong with
fine.
that.
but they're not getting addicted because they know
They're healthy.
what could happen. I mean, even if you know what could happen, how you could become an addict, and you understand the science
True.
and the psychology,
True.
I even think you could use and know, like, no way can I do that again. Like, I got my use, I got to feel what it's like, you know, I can't do anymore. I think that's more likely to happen.
True.
They have trended under the EU in every statistic since this has gone into effect.
I
It
feel-
is insane.
I feel like that's a big problem that I've seen in America, where people don't know what, like, addictive behavior looks like. Like, especially like young college kids, or teenagers, or even young adults. Like, they'll go out and drink every weekend and, like, get a DUI and be like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, everybody gets one, you know? Or, like, wake up passed out somewhere, like, in a really bad situation. It's like, these are not normal situations.
Yep.
Once it gets to that point, like, there's a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, if you're making really bad, reckless decisions and you're drinking on a regular basis and these bad decisions are happening surrounding that, you have a problem.
Like, if they're happening multiple times a week, then you are absolutely running up on a problem or have a problem already. And yeah, I agree. There's a lot of people out there that I've met in my lifetime that don't understand the different types of alcoholism, how you do not have to crave a drink to be an alcoholic. I knew
Nope.
this one guy that he could not drink, but the second he took one drink, that's it. He didn't know how to stop until he was passed out. And sometimes it went for 2 days, and I'm talking a lot of alcohol. Like, he could consume so much alcohol, and no one could keep up with him, you know? And that's just a different type of alcoholism where, no, he didn't get the shakes. No, he wasn't physically dependent on it like that, but he literally had zero control. Zip. None. Period. So he couldn't go out with his friends because he would have one sip of something and that's it. He's on a run. You know what I mean? And learning, understanding, and knowing these things to prevent it before it happens will solve a lot of these issues, because using drugs isn't a problem. The trauma that makes people want to be
not be able to control their impulses.
yes, the impulse control. Yep.
Because that's a big deal in addiction, is a lack of impulse control. Like, it's huge.
Yeah.
And people who are traumatized usually have an issue with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But so an idea like this is just really important to me. I think this is probably one of the biggest things that we could do, the biggest things that we could put into play and change. And, you know, I was reading a lot of different things on it, and it talked about how hard it was at first because it is a whole social system that has to be changed. Because they were told under the regime that they had before that made before this was possible, is that drugs was literally Satan. Literally Satan coming to get your family and kids. And if you had a drug addict, that's it. They're going to hell. Like, that's what they were taught. So everybody in Portugal had this really messed up idea of what drugs is. And
But
they had
drugs are.
Yeah, and they had to transition and change their idea of what it is to people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and drugs, almost most drugs, okay, can be used in a responsible way, recreationally.
Yeah, all, I would say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, all. I would
Yep,
say
as long
all.
as you know what you're getting into. There are some
Yeah.
drugs out there, sure, you probably only want to try once just to try with
Yeah.
knowing what's going on and knowing doses and, like, very, very, very important things. But yeah, there are healthy ways to do everything, and there are unhealthy ways to do everything, including working out, including obsessing over who knows what. Like, those are all signs of addiction. And if you just happen to be a part of a war on drugs society and get a hold of drugs, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen women who are addicted to healthy lifestyles that end up convincing themselves that working out 3 hours a day, every single day, and eating a huge calorie deficit was somehow healthy for them. And then they lose their period and their hair starts falling out, and they're like, oh, what's wrong with me? I don't know. Maybe the fact that you basically eat negative calories every day because you're working out so much.
Yep.
Like and that can be addictive. That can be like an addictive behavior. They have a lack of impulse control. They feel like they need to do this thing. It gives them control over something or
Yep.
an escape from something, and they can't not do it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be done with just about anything. So even if drugs didn't exist, we would find other ways to be addicts.
Absolutely.
So
It's the vices that need to be legalized. All of the sex industry, all of drug use, all of gambling, all of these things that people do for enjoyment that can become a problem. We need to stop throwing them in jail and start teaching people.
Yep.
Start teaching people. Make an entire class across the country in high school a drug class. Let's go over the pros and cons of every drug. Let's go over what those addict behavior on every drug could look like. Let's go, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of different ways we could be managing this.
Not just dare that drugs are bad, because that isn't realistic.
No, like
Like everybody I knew was in DARE, and everybody I knew used drugs.
Yeah, like I said, there's all drugs. There's healthy use and there's unhealthy use.
Yeah, they do not teach you that in those classes, though. At all. It's like all these drugs are going to kill you. You will die the first time you take ecstasy. You will die.
Yep, I know. And what's cool, so for the crime stuff, is Portugal is now considered one of the safest countries, period.
Wow.
Where they weren't before. So when you do things like decriminalize or even legalizing it would be so much better and held to the same standards of driving while intoxicated and all that other stuff. You lose all of the control that the gangs have over entire neighborhoods because they can't control the drugs that have a monetary value that give them the control over those areas.
I mean, drugs will still have a monetary value.
Not when they're not in that way. Gangs thrive because they control black market substances. If there's not a black market and there's an actual market, they have no control.
So wait, in Portugal, since all drugs are decriminalized, can you go to stores and buy literally any kind of drug?
So, yes, there are some locations where, no, you can't just go to a store. They're decriminalized, not legalized. That's the difference between decriminalization and legalization. So if it's legalized, then you can sell it, manage it, things like that. Decriminalization, they have houses for shooting up, they have clean needle programs, they have safe spaces for it, all of that good stuff. I know they also issue, they have these houses that'll issue drugs if you're an addict, so you know what you're getting, potency, all that good stuff. They don't get deaths from, fentanyl. So yeah, like there's a lot better options. Obviously, I think legalizing it is the best option because that diminishes all of the crimes control, but I would settle for decriminalization. I think anything is better than what we have right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I just feel like you didn't really explain how. I mean, because it still has a monetary value, so the gang still can do some things.
That's not how it would work. That's why you don't have massive gangs like dealing pot anymore. It's not a thing.
So the illicit drugs are just worth more.
Yeah.
The illegal drugs are worth more.
You would be able to get them at a store if it's legalized.
No, I'm talking about decriminalized.
Decriminalized? Yeah, I mean...
Portugal decriminalized. They didn't legalize.
Yeah, which makes more people likely to become dealers because you can't go to prison for dealing. So it's not something that you have to be a career criminal to make the decision to manage and sell.
Because anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it.
Okay.
Yep. So they still lose some power, not all power. Yep.
I got
But
you.
if you think I am absolutely insane off the wall for believing in this, I want to talk to you.
He is insane.
I am insane.
You're just crazy and weird.
I love it. I am weird, and I love it. And I want to talk to you. So come talk to us.
Yeah.
All right.